Welcome to Wizard Team, a Black magical podcast for Black magical stories.
Hi everyone, it's Bayana, Robyn, and Porshèa, embarking on a journey through the many fantasy stories written by and about Black people. Currently, we're reading Legendborn by Tracy Deonn, and today we're discussing chapters 39 through 41.
But before we get into those chapters, let's talk about what happened previously on Wizard Team. And let me just say, if you are not one to sit around and be played, then you need to go check out our Instagram, where we have done a summary in meme form. So you don't even have to listen to this part if you don't want to. You're going to just slide through our memification of our previous episode, you know?
That's very true. That's my favorite part.
Bayana compiles it very nicely for us all. So you can have a picture, or you can pull it up as I'm talking about it, and we can just walk through together, you know? An audio to go with that visual, you know? Let's go. All right. So previously on Wizard Team, Bree wakes up with a broken clavicle and internal bleeding, as pictographed. DW staring at these post-its on the wall. She doesn't read them. She's like, am I technically literate? Yes. Do I think I'm actually going to follow these orders that William gave me? No. So she goes to go find Nick, but instead of before she can even get to contemplating like the full thing of like Nick not even being around, she hears Sel throwing a tantrum, and he's so loud, like he's outside in a forest, cracking trees. And she can hear it all the way in the lodge. Everyone in the lodge is like, that's just Sel throwing a tantrum. But Bree is like, I can help him. And she goes out there. She realizes that he's angry and aether drunk because of him doing the oath. And he's disgusted by himself and worried that he will be let go as King's Mage. And as we learn later in the episode, he's very validated for having these fears because Lord Davis is an a-hole who will follow back on these words. Like, he will pull through. Bree makes a connection between his words and Ruth's memory, what he says about like being King's Mage, and then also the memory that she shared with Ruth, where she noticed a Merlin opening a gate in 1995. So Bree starts to pull together. What if the attacks from 1995 are connected to the attacks that are happening now? So Sel and Bree pull on their sleuthing hats. It's looking very Sherlock and Watson right now. They go to the Davis house and they open up the King, not King, let's not make him King. They open up Dr. Davis's study. They open up the folios and they find out that not only are there files that document what happened back in 25 years ago, but also that Sel's mom was the King's Mage who allegedly opened those gates that happened. She had been let go because of this, and she is still alive despite Sel being told that she was dead.
Jinkies.
Jinkies. That was a great summary. On to chapter 39. And guess what, y'all? The angst. It gets angstier. I don't know what to tell you. It's just,
you know what? This whole section. Just
and pining, you know, is fun. When you're pining in someone's face, that's
pining,
the best.
Angst, like just
longing,
the you know,
like
all of it.
Stolen looks.
On all sides. I love it.
And we don't even see like the full range of Nick's angst in this. Like, we just see a little dash.
Just a dash, but it's there.
It's there.
Everybody gets a little something. Everybody gets something. You get
tidbit.
angst. You get angst.
You get longing. You get confusion. So Sel gets up and is pacing tracks on his carpet, kicks a hole in his closet, and Bree recognizes her grief in his, gets up, and holds him. Like, not just hugs him, holds him, and tells him she's sorry, and helps him, like, come
But
back
also,
to him,
this man is it's touch starved, and this is like
Yes.
maybe the first time we see it. But also, we talked about in the last episode about how like when he's having these like meltdowns, everybody just lets him be.
Yeah, they
And
just
part of
back
that is
up.
because he be lashing out. So it's like, yeah, I'm not trying to get got
Mhm.
by the dude who can make ether constructs and like, hellhounds and stuff.
Is knocking down trees currently.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like, no thanks. For safety reasons, sure.
Yeah,
But
self
not even
preservation.
dead trees, like fresh,
yeah,
living,
like trees that are still
thriving
had some
trees.
years, had some centuries ahead. But like nobody, like, when's the last time Selwyn got a hug? Like,
I mean, to
It's
the point
giving
where
probably before his
she
mom.
holds him, he tenses first.
Yeah,
His
he's
first
like,
reaction
oh,
is like, ooh,
he's like, what
danger.
is this?
And
it
then
gives me
Yeah.
Rocket Raccoon from whenever they're consoling Rocket Raccoon and he just stiffens.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's a thing.
That's what Cell gives me.
Yep. And then Tracy drops bars, as she is wont to do. This is like the first sentence. I never considered the loss of someone else's mother would be so connected to losing my own, or that the loss would go hand in hand with death, destruction, and a horrifying fate. Nick's mother, Cell's, mine. How many mothers has the order taken? And I just like want them to like sit in that for a moment. I guess Bree, because Bree's thinking this, she doesn't say it out loud. I need Bree to like sit in this for a moment because they're the baddies. Remember. So,
and not the cute kind of baddies, not the hot girl Meg kind of baddies.
Yeah. We don't have no Whitney. It's giving villain is what it's giving. It's not giving bad bitch. It's giving villain. So Cell wonders aloud if he is actually a monster because it looks like I came from one. And my thing is like they don't question the validity of this report or like not even validity, because like something can be true and you still misunderstand like the motivation or like the background or the context, right? And it reminds me a lot of what you were saying last episode, Bayana, about like how Bayana Davis is still perceived to be like trustworthy and upright. Like people they're not disillusioned by like the cruelty that the regents and the order can inflict on its own like members, but they are very much like drinking that Kool-Aid of like for the greater good and like and kind of like it reminds me of like when you see people just like taking police reports at face value or like the PR from a country as like factual truth. And you can kind of be like, I don't think that should have happened, or I don't agree with like the punishment or of the crime, but you never stop to think that like maybe the crime wasn't a crime or didn't happen that way or is being misrepresented. And so I was like just really struck in this part of this chapter by like that that lack of skepticism, I guess, after reading this report. So Cell immediately is like, well, I guess I was lied to for my own protection. Probably like, it's easier for me to think that my mom died in a botched mission than the fact that like I guess she's still alive, but I'll never see her because she's being held in like a prison. Then again, Bree continues to like recognize her own grief within like how Cell is like acting right now. And he's like, all right, let's move on. Let's get to like why we came here and find the answers about your mother. And they find the file on Bree's mother. She was at the gate opening and had her memories altered. But then we find out that they track her and kind of test her in the intervening years. So go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to go back just a little bit to just like the moment where she like finds her file and she like sees her picture, and like
Mm,
the kind of moment there where she's kind of like, I almost forgot what she looked like. And it's a moment where, I mean, we also talked about like Bree and Cell, how their anger kind of feeds off of each other,
yeah,
like before, and now it's kind of like their grief is, it's both sitting there and they're trying to like be there for each other while also not wanting to accept that help at the same time.
yeah.
um it's
Like, you need
very
help, obviously. I'm cool. I'm a thug.
I'm
I can
good.
tough it out.
It's
But
like,
I'm also here for you.
right, if you feel like you need to break down, but I don't.
Yeah.
um
But you might. And
yeah,
that's fine. That's valid. Feel your feelings,
yeah,
homie. I am good.
I'm good.
Um,
And then also the point where they read out her major. She was a
mm,
biology major and a chemistry minor, which I agree with
couldn't be
Sel,
me.
sounds painful. Like, that's crazy. But I
Yeah.
also like Bree is like, that's a scientist. Like, that's my mama.
Yeah. She
You
got some
know?
pride in her voice. She's like,
Yeah, she's so
um,
like, it's, yeah, I just feel like I mean, this whole chapter is just about like, you know, Bree connected with
yeah,
Nick about his mom, and they've like had that connection, but then now again, like she brought up at the beginning, the three of them have this same kind of
loss.
um mhm
Intersecting grief.
mhm
Um, so I have to read this part because I'm mad at Porshèa. Uh, so the side of Owain and Squire Harris found Miss Carter and two other once-borns, seafowl names Mitchell and Howard, near the Ogoth de Drag. What is that? Ogov Thraig. He corrects my pronunciation. The Welsh double D is the soft TH in leather. How dare you? Portia
I
said,
mean,
can you please give us a pronunciation guide? Tracy said, sure, here you go. This is how you pronounce this thing. And I still know for a fact I did not pronounce that right. Ogov Uthraig. The double D is the soft TH as in leather.
It don't
The,
explain the rest of the word.
the,
It don't explain the rest of the word.
how did you get the from the?
I mean,
I could be here all day. Because when I read it, I spent a good chunk of time going. I don't get it.
right. Yeah.
The tongue and the ears do what they do. It's a mystery to me. I am not a scientist.
But it means Cave of the Dragon, which is
Yeah,
love that for them. But also it's just where like she and Sel were there when
yeah.
they were
It's those
hiding from the hell
underground caves.
boxes. Yeah.
Yeah. Um. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but basically, we find out that she gets her memory altered after that. The seeing the corporal demons, basically.
Yeah.
And then they the report says they will be monitored during their time on campus and assigned a field Merlin when they graduate. And so
Which
then
is
they're
like
all
crazy, just thinking about like, in some ways I think Cell likens it to witness protection, but it's also dangerous because what do they do if something like happens, right? Like, I think they kind of go through like the logs of her mom and like, oh yeah, she's showing
mhm,
no sign that she remembers the thing, but like more than likely she does actually remember it because we know that Bree can break mesmer, so her mom has no reason to, like, we have no reason to believe her mom couldn't do that too, and is literally like fearing for her life because if she reveals that she remembers any of that, it's not like they're just gonna like, they're not protecting her at that point, they're protecting the order.
yeah.
um
And
and
I
so it's
think we
really
can
like
say,
these once
well,
born are actually in danger and not so much that they're like under their protection.
yeah, and we'll see like a little bit later. Cell like reinforces the fact that like to mesmer someone, you need to replace that memory with an equally weighted memory. And so I was thinking like, oh, if she shows a sign of like remembering, they'll just like re-mesmer her. But then I was like, well, the further and further along she goes, that gets more and more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And at what point, because we know that the order does not care about these people, do they do like a cost benefit analysis and be like, just kill her and be done with it? You know what I mean? Instead of wasting all this magical power or, you know, all this effort. So they're dated like a log, and they're just check-ins throughout her time as an undergrad. So she's 19 when this hellhound attack happens that she sees. And let me go back. She's a sophomore, so she wasn't in early college. She's like a 19-year-old sophomore. And this happens in like I said, we don't have the original date, or we might in the other chapter that I can't remember. But like, so the first check-in is in May, a couple of weeks after, May 1995. And the order member on campus is in a group project with her in a linguistics class, spending several hours with her a week, even with some gentle probing about campus events. She does not mention or recall last month's attack. So this kind of goes on while she's in college. And then the final check-in is May 2020. She was killed in a hit and run. And then the field, Merlin, says they were alerted to the death by a vassal working in the local police department. They assumed the identity of an officer, and then she leaves behind a husband, Edwin Matthews, and a teenage daughter. And then this is the final entry in Witness 11's file. And so Bree comes to the conclusion that like this actually was just an accident, and that and the same thing as like what Bayana is saying. Casselle's like, is this the Merlin you saw? And she says like, yeah, that's it. And then Sal's like, if you can sense ether and you can see it, maybe it didn't work on your mom either. And this is when Bree kind of loses it. And says like she understands that like, yeah, she's already thought of that. And like, so her mom, she's starting to like understand like did this what she thinks of as like the smart thing and the safe thing, and just hides. And is like, even if she could resist the mesmer, she's not gonna like.
She didn't jump headfirst into the order.
She didn't jump headfst. She didn't knock on the.
She didn't make it hot. Nobody knew besides her.
Yeah. And she didn't knock on the door of the lodge being like, what up, y'all? You know what I mean? Like, she was just like, I'm gonna keep my head down. I'm gonna graduate. I'm gonna mind my business. I ain't see nothing. My name is Bennett. I ain't in it. So anytime someone asks me about whatever, I don't know nothing. I didn't see nothing. No. And so Bree calls herself a selfish daughter. She did saying like her mom did what she needed to do to keep herself safe, keep her family safe, keep her daughter safe. And that she hid this knowledge from her, or tried to, but it didn't work because Bree is selfless and she had to come and dig.
And this part is so sad because it's like, the thing is it's not just about this, right? This is all the stuff she was already feeling right before she found the order and was like, ooh, somebody else to blame.
Yeah, because she said she had to come here and dig, and it's like, here it's not just the order and the lodge, it's also UNC and early college, you know, and like and pushing back against like the things that her mom tried to shield her from, basically. And I think that it's really interesting too, because it makes sense that like in this moment she's kind of blaming herself and saying that she's selfish and she's going against her mom's wishes, or she's doing something explicitly that her mother would not have done. But it's also that thing of like when someone says like don't look down, and your immediate reaction is to look down, or you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And because her mom tried to hide these things from her, it's also why she had to dig, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
it goes both ways. Like there's a way in which I believe this, that like her mother could have shared some more with her, with Bree, given her some level of information and still kept her safe and still said like, if
Because
anyone
it's like
asks you,
it's
we don't
better
talk
to
about
be
this.
like informed in that
Yes.
way. Like it's hard to know what to avoid if you don't know why. And like she obviously can tell that the order is dangerous, but she is in the dark. Like
Yeah.
she's spending all this time trying to figure out why. Um versus if she had
And it
known about
allows for
things
like,
beforehand, she might not have made different choices, but she would have made more informed choices.
yes. And this is like something that like, as someone who works in communications and tech, like we have to fight against all the time. And like I'm always like advocating for more transparency, because like the more cagey you are, the more you lend to kind of tinfoil hat conspiracy thinking, right? And it's like, even if it's not the case, people can tell that you're hiding something, and then what they think you're hiding can sometimes be 20, 30 times worse than like just being like, oh nah man, you know, we got rid of this thing because it costs too much to maintain, is much
Mhm.
easier for people to understand than we got rid of this thing because there's lizard people telling us what we can do, and we are like and beholden to China, and China, you know, or whatever like people come up with. And sometimes it's not that you know, Occam's razor or whatever, but like sometimes it's not that, it's not this big conspiracy. Not that the order isn't a big conspiracy, but
Right. And even like that's the thing is
Bree's
like
mom is like,
you see all of the like Bree's mom successfully like hid or kept
mhm,
herself and her abilities like under wraps. And like again, like you said, like obviously the order is still a big conspiracy. Like she knew, and so she was like, I'm not gonna tell my daughter about this, and I'm gonna try to keep it from her because I know that the order is watching me. Um they just didn't have anything to do with her death. Like all, you know, there's still other stuff that popped off around her, but it was not a direct um
and
contributor.
to
And
like
like
Bree's mom too, I feel like she's probably like, yeah, this is a big conspiracy, but this conspiracy has nothing to do with me. It's not a danger to me or mine. So let them go. Like that's some white people shit, and let that go be some white people shit. You know what I mean? Like we don't get involved in like their fights, you know?
mhm.
I think it's also just personality types. I think we talked about this as a side, like on it, like not probably within the podcast, but how people learn in different ways, and like how I think all of us here are more like, if I see someone else go through it, that's enough. Like I see it, I understand, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And but some people need to learn through like directly going through the thing, even if they see it, it doesn't really connect with them. And I wonder if Bree, especially grief-stricken Bree, would have been receptive to, even if her mom had forewarned her, like, if you see something, no you didn't, you know what I mean, kind of thing.
Hmm.
If she would have been receptive to that logic after she actually had seen the thing in the party, right? Like would she really have like come through with her mom saying, or would she been like, nah, I'm about to figure out what this is, you know what I mean? So it really just
But I
depends.
also think that even if that was the case, she would have gone about it differently. She wouldn't have made herself known to the order in the same way, you know? Like it would have been
She might
much
not have even
more,
gone to UNC. Like I think like that's the
yeah.
whole like root of
That's what
their
she's think.
argument
Yeah.
in the first place is that like her mom was holding so tightly to her that she wanted to like break free of that. Um and like again, not to say that she would have made different choices, but she would have made informed choices, and it might have like changed and like, you know, maybe she wouldn't have infiltrated the order. Maybe she would have been like, you know what, my mom wanted me to stay clear of them. I know they're like, you know what I mean, she would have had more information on them
Or
from
she would
someone
have
else.
investigated
Like,
the order,
her
but not
first,
infiltrated them. You know
not
what I mean? Which is
infiltrated, or she would have
yourself
already
on
come in with more like preconceived notions of who they are versus like coming in completely like uninformed and getting her initial like knowledge of them from them themselves. Maybe she would
I
have
think it would
like
be
found Patricia faster before that. You know what I mean? There might have been different ways that she went about it. Either way, like the point of her feeling selfish again is really stems from the fact that they had that big argument before she passed away, and not necessarily like it is this too, but it's like a compounded thing that she's been repressing and ignoring and like projecting onto something else, and now that something else has kind of fallen apart and shown that like nope, that's not it. Now she's like, oh, then it really is me, I am the problem, which is not true, but
that's not it either.
That's how she's gotten there.
Yeah.
I think another component of grief is also just like living with like not having the options anymore, like not having the option to talk to her mom anymore, not having the option to see what her life would have looked like if it continued with her mom in it. And so for that reason, I would love to see some fanfic of like what would happen if Bree had been forewarned, and perhaps if she had like we had got a separate book where a different book where she had actually like interacted with like her rebellion was instead with talking to the Rootcraft community because she knows that her mom didn't. So she's like, I'm gonna rebel against my mom by talking and engaging with community that she refused to engage with. Like that's what I'm gonna do. And then that somehow leads to her getting involved with like not like competition, but some kind of conflict with the order, given like what they can do, and also the fact that she is freaking Arthur's line. Like that would have been like an interesting spin on the story as well.
And obviously, like Bree doesn't know this at this time, but like,
yeah,
there is nothing like she's going to get thrown into this eventually.
She can't avoid it.
She can't avoid it. She is our author or a part of Arthur's line. But so this is one thing I wanted to point out too. It's like, so she's saying that she's selfish. She had to come here and dig. And then she said, Sel's trying to comfort her. This is back to like two broken people trying to give comfort without receiving it. And she says, she didn't want me to find the order because she didn't want me to become your target, but I did anyway. Didn't want me to get hurt, but I did anyway. I had to barge in here with the barest shadow of a plan and no clue what I was doing. And I know that she's going through it, and I know that she's in grief, but also we stand some self-awareness. And I'm glad that like she got there in the end and admitted it to herself. If nothing else, I don't wish her pain. And I feel very like sad that she's grappling with all of these emotions, especially in front of Sel. But she admits it was the barest shadow of a plan.
Yeah. It's okay. So she's gonna keep doing the same thing, so it's fine.
Yeah,
I think she knew it. She's known it the whole time. She's never been in denial. Yeah. She's been in a place of like, I'm gonna just keep moving. Like if I keep moving, then it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't work. It doesn't matter. I wouldn't say
that she was in denial, but I would say that she wouldn't admit it. She'd be like, "It's fine." The plan is
to keep moving.
She's like, it'll bear out.
It's like the means to the end. Like it's gonna bear out in the end. I'm gonna keep moving. It'll bear out in the end. It doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense now. In the end, it'll work itself out.
I'm clever, and that's the plan. The plan is that I'm smarter than these people. So then she says, "Take her away." And Sel says, "Who?" And so she's asking Sel to take away all of it. I don't want this anymore. I don't want to feel this anymore. I won't break the mesmer. I'll let it happen. If I can't have her, I don't want to remember her.
She wants to be eternal sunshine for her mother.
She wants to be eternal sunshine from her mother. But like, it's also like, and this is the one part where I'm like, I am glad that this is happening in front of Sel and not someone else or like a William or something like that. Because it is like a very deep and raw emotion that she's feeling. Mm-hmm. And as much as she just said, I came in here with the barest shadow of a plan, she's now throwing out another unthought through, unexamined plan that, you know, stems from hurt and grief, but like, say he said yes. And then what? Like, your dad is gonna ask something and you're gonna be like, who? Like,
but also, like, it's very, like, I'm glad that Cell is not Doctor Strange and she's not Peter Parker. Like, I'm so glad,
Man,
like,
that part.
MCUing right now.
Like the white man science of like, well, let's just see if we can do it. I don't think we can, but let's try.
I'm like, I honestly don't think that's within character. I'm like, he's a freaking surgeon. Like, why would he just willy-nilly improvise? Okay, this kid, it doesn't sit, like, it doesn't hit for me, but sure, it happened. Fine. I'm glad Cell is not doing that.
Very egotistical.
Sure, but egotistical within the realm of like, I got like, does he not have enough things to do as the non-Sorcerer Supreme? Like, why is he taking on a request from this teenager who could, if he simply would do things like rationally in his life, could possibly help, but is like instead calling on magic. Like, I get that if magic is the temptation, if it's available, you want to use it. But at the same time, he don't got it though. He has to go request it, and you're the adult in the situation. So for what? How is Cell more of an adult than Dr. Stephen Strange? Is my question.
We really got off the pot here, but yes. Welcome to Withertube, where we talk about
everything. I would say too, like, I think again, he's also still reeling from like what he found out about his mom, and so like, I think in some ways he's probably seeing himself through, you know what I mean, like through Bree's eyes.
They're seeing each other through their grief.
Yeah, they see each other.
Bree's reflected.
Yeah.
He's like, I wouldn't do that. He was like, I could see how you could get there, but
he's like, he understands the feeling.
Yeah.
But he's also like, I know that's definitely not the move.
And I'm glad he explains it the way that he does, because that's honestly, it's just like, oh, so I literally can't. Like, you really literally can't. So
yeah.
Sorry, babe.
And I do like that he's like, even if I wanted to, because it's like, I don't want to.
Yeah. Right.
I'm not going to. But even if I did want to, I can't,
which
because
Stephen Strange should have said and done.
I'm not powerful enough. I don't have the range.
It's not even like the power. It's literally like, you have to replace it with something, and it's like, where does that come from? Like, where would you even?
What is the equal weight of your
what
mother?
Is comparable? Yeah. And either way,
like,
you're
her
still
entire
hurting.
Existence,
like,
too.
Yeah.
Not just like her death, but you have to
her whole life, your whole everything you know about your mother.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you're born,
right?
Did we just?
You just remember your father? Your father was just
like your father birthed you out of
without
your will.
Yeah,
you know. So then she breaks. She's crying. She runs. Bree loves to do two things: ignore some very well thought out advice and then run away. Avoidance, man.
She keeps it moving. She keeps it moving.
Avoidance works.
That is her consistent keep things moving.
Is that what's happening right now? Is it working?
Yeah.
It works in the moment. Like, I gotta act on this emotion. This emotion is run away. Guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna run with this emotion. Let's
go. Okay.
She keeps coming back to it. Listen, a licensed therapist told me that avoidance works. She said,
I know.
For the time.
I don't know if by the time in this way.
I'm aware that this therapist told you this. I'm just saying.
By the time it stops working, you've avoided enough to think of another plan to avoid.
Is
what
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I don't know that that's what the therapist wanted you to go.
I don't think so.
Well, this rationale.
Listen, she should have talked faster, because I stopped listening when she said it works. So then she runs to the she's like, I never should have come here. She goes to the door, and then boom, 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 Nick is standing on the opposite side of the door, and that is where this ends.
With Cell's hand on her shoulder as well.
As Nick is
being like, don't go.
And then she opens the door.
Sel
and
is
there
asking
goes
somebody not
Nick.
to leave to order somebody that he prosecuted for a demon.
Me girl.
Please stay with me
tonight.
None of this is gonna line up. I love it.
I'm so sad because I'm like that. We might have a harmony, but we cannot know.
We would never know.
We never know.
Love B&C content? Want to see the tricks behind the treats? Every month we drop behind the scenes and bonus content on our Patreon. Baddies at any tier get access to notes, process videos, and podcast outtakes. Support us on Patreon at any tier by going to patreon.com/blacknerdscreate. All right, so this is, I will say, this chapter is very short. Also, like, we're about to get to some really short chapters.
But can I just say,
I was like skimming through earlier, and I was like, oh, some of these chapters are like a page. So
yeah, I was gonna like for Robyn getting the pronunciation chapter, and then you getting the full on angst confrontation chapter. I'm like, this is so on brand. Like this spat of chapters of alignment is really on brand.
Oh yes, okay. So of course,
they're in turmoil, and
Nick is behind.
Bayana is loving
I love this. Oh, this is my jam. So yeah, so obviously this is like the worst timing ever, because if everybody had been like emotionally, strong at this moment, it maybe could have been different, but because everybody
and they were just like emotionally not swept up in emotion right now. They were
I would also say like
mature.
It's interesting reading this chapter because Nick doesn't really get a moment to feel jealous. Every moment where he's about to, like, he gets let in a little bit more on like how like messed up Bree is, or like what's actually going on, and he's like, oh no, now I feel really, you know what I mean? Now he's like,
yeah.
Oh, this is so but I also appreciate that he's someone who, like, I don't know, there are people and like even characters who get super caught up in let's talk about a tangent. Gale Hawthorne.
Woo!
This man is so concerned about
if
Katniss and kissing Katniss, and not the fact that she's fucking traumatized. All on some, oh, I just saw PETA and he's been hijacked, and my first thought was, I'll never have a chance with Katniss. Just leave. Get out.
Leave.
Like, oh my God. Nick doesn't do that, right? He's not prioritizing.
He's not making it about him.
He's not making it about him. He's not prioritizing his feelings over Bree's. He like genuinely cares about her and what's going on, and like he's confused and a little like upset about the fact that it's Sel that she like made this discovery with, but it's not like,
but he also very quickly is like, table that.
Yeah, like exactly. He's like, that's not what it's about. Like he has those feelings and he deserves to have those feelings, right? But it's not the most pressing situation right now, and so he can leave that on the side. He can start to feel it and then be like, nope. We can put that on the side, and then we're gonna like deal with the issue at hand, which is that Bree is in shambles and is talking about she's leaving. Instead of, you only kiss me when you're upset. Like, I'm about to. Never wanted to. I mean, that's actually not true. I want to punch a lot of fictional characters. Anyway,
yeah.
So
is a very
when I read it as a teenager, because I reread it this year and it had been at least 10 years since I read it, I didn't feel as like viscerally upset about Gale before that. I was just kind of like, it's her best friend. They're not like romantically compatible, whatever. I just kind of left it there. Reading it as an adult, I was like, no. Somebody shoot him. I'm like, he doesn't have to die, but just like shoot him.
I've only ever read it as like an adult.
I was like, can he not get caught up in a snare? Like,
I'm like, come on.
Because he was always irking me, where the whole a lot of times I couldn't parse between whether I was like more mad at Suzanne for writing him or him. Like, you know, sometimes like, okay, your character makes sense and it makes sense for this character to behave this way. And then sometimes you're like, but you didn't have to write him this trash. Like, it's just,
I mean, I will
there
also
is
say
not a
like
person.
Yeah, and I will say like reading Mockingjay, I felt like I understood what she was doing with him, and like on a like narrative and like philosophical level, I appreciated like his character and showing like his like thought process, especially as it regards to like the actual revolution against the Capitol. But when it came to just Katniss herself, F him. He could go.
She does not have time.
Wrap it up.
To care about your feelings.
Like you're watching her in the Hunger Games, feeling jealous about some other kid who can also be murdered.
She's
she's
fighting
in a murder
for
game.
her life. She's in a murder game.
By volunteering for her sister, who you're supposed to be taking care of while she's out here in these fields. You're supposed to be taking care of her family, making sure you're backing her up as her bestie, making sure she doesn't worry about her family while she's away from her family.
Never, not once, doing. At no point in that entire trilogy did Katniss have like a realistic time to sit down and be worried about
unconditional just like help. Like just like Peeta was the only one who was like unconditionally giving her Peeta. Like it felt very transactional.
Even after he got even after he got what's it called? Hijacked, he was still once he started to calm down and, you know, realize some of that stuff wasn't real, he was still Katniss was it. So anyway, I don't know if we're gonna keep that in. We got to figure out something to do with it if we don't. But
like, we're not gonna read this book series, but here's some of our thoughts.
But and it just makes me, you know, appreciate Nick more, especially after having like just done that.
Yeah, especially because like as a love triangle, I feel like I dislike, and we've talked about this, like our dislikes in love triangles, but I dislike love triangles where it's very clear that the main character is going to go with one person from like from early on in the triangle, and you're like, so then why make it a triangle then? Like, why is this happening? And I appreciate with Hunger Games, because Katniss is, again, should be ace. It's so wrapped up in so many different things or whatever. Like, she really just can't be compelled to linger on romance too long because there's so many other things she's got to be worried about. And it really is not a big priority for her. Again, it should be ace.
I don't even know if it's like, I don't even know if it's that Katniss should be ace, but like there is no room for romance.
She
in the
emotionally,
she read very ace to me as well.
Yeah,
she just read very ace to me, but also there is no room for like thinking about, like, if you can't envision a future for yourself.
Yeah.
If you can't envision yourself living through the next week, what are we doing?
And you're worried what I'm doing while I'm over here battling for my life. Get out of my face. Ooh, Gail gets on my nerves.
He's the worst. Okay. So it only takes a second for Nick's eyes to take in her tear-stained face, Sel's hand on her shoulder, and Sel standing behind her. And so Rest and Felicity are with him. But like obviously, right? Like if you just take in that scene on its own, immediately Sel's getting thrown out the house like Jazz in the Fresh Prince.
And at least his hand is resting. It's not like he's like grappling, like holding her
but
down.
You know, it's even still, it's like if that's all you're going off of, you're like, wait, what? I told you, first of all, I told you to stay away from her. Now you made her cry.
Like, and he told her to stay away from him. Like y'all supposed to be staying away from each other.
We're about to throw him out. So Nick is like, what the hell is going on here? And so Bree immediately is like, I need to go home. So she is not, you know, in the same way that we talked about, like just in the last chapter, about how Sel and Bree are both trying to help each other and also not receive that help. Like Nick is not who she feels like she needs to see right now, because she doesn't want to like feel his concern for her. She doesn't want to be comforted. That's why she's running away from Sel right now in the first place. And so she knows that if she sees Nick and like deals with him and explains what's going on, like any of the like trying to build her walls back up is just not gonna happen.
I also think too, sorry, like really quickly,
go ahead.
She's grappling with all of her own stuff too, but like I think seeing Nick is also another level of guilt of like, I pulled you back into this world, even though, as we know, he was gonna get pulled back in anyway.
It's gonna happen regardless.
He was gonna happen regardless. But like, I pulled you kicking and screaming, and it was what it was looked like. You know what I mean? Like it was an accident the whole time. Like,
right. So it's like further, like more guilt.
More guilt, yeah. So it's like, I can't deal with you trying to comfort me when, like, once you figure out what actually is going on, you'll notice that, like, my hubris just kicked off. Yeah, it's all my fault.
Yeah. So Nick is like,
I'm
what?
selfish.
Why? He turns to Cell and is like, what did you do to her? I didn't do anything, so Cell, not that you'll believe me. Then Bree confirms it, but Nick is like, then why are you crying? She again doesn't really explain. She's just like, I gotta go home. She asks Felicity specifically to take her. And Nick is like, I can drive you. Like, what do you mean by that? But Bree, I can't look at him. Felicity, please. So again, she's just like, she wants to get away from this situation. And so Felicity's like, sure, asks Russ to bring her car, which, as an aside,
can we talk about
I love
Russie?
That for her. I love that she, instead of just being like, oh yeah, I'll go get the car, she goes, Russie, can you get my car, please? You know what? Baddies up one.
I love the like, why do what you can when you can make a man do it for you? But Russie, I don't like that.
You don't like Russie?
Russie.
I think it's cute.
I like that I don't mind.
It's there. It's not like anyone else is calling him that.
Right. Don't.
This
is
and she's British. It gives her
like,
the British accent does a little something more to it. You know, maybe.
Maybe. I think it's because of Russ, like, and Russie. I think it's like, it just sounds like rusty. I don't know. I think it's really just the wording. Like, if it was a pet name for, like, with a different name, maybe I wouldn't care. If it was Nikki, go get my car, I probably wouldn't have such a ugh.
I don't like. I like Nikki less. I feel like maybe
I don't
it's
like
because
Nikki as much.
Russie is
because I've known people named Rusty, so it doesn't bother me like ear wise. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah, it didn't bother me at all. It was more just like, you know, that's their relationship, and I mostly was like, yeah, you better go. Like, go get that car, Russ.
It reminds me of like whenever, like, because whenever we have a good relationship, hopefully it's a good relationship. Like Darren, I'll be like we were in a whole other country, and I was like, would you mind grabbing me some books while you're in the town center? He's like, sure. I'm like, yes, I get the books that I want while I'm actually on panels.
Exactly.
It's a teamwork.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
And I love that. What is Felicity doing right now? Just being nosy. Just
she's not. It's not like she has something else to do. I mean,
no.
Nothing that like Russ couldn't have done.
Yeah.
But
she's there to maintain and make sure no blood is, or not too much blood is shed, I guess.
Right. And I think also, like, if Bree is looking specifically to her for help, like in that situation,
it's like, she
could be like, maybe I need to stay with her until the car is here, as opposed to leaving, and who knows what's going on. Exactly.
She clearly doesn't want to be alone with them, so let me be someone with her as she is trying to not be alone with them.
Yeah. So then Cell goes, let her go, Nick. Which is just like, bro. Also, and then they both freeze because they notice that he doesn't call him Nicholas. He says Nick. So somehow that also makes everyone like what? Why are you inserting yourself?
They're picking up the cues.
And so in that split second, Nick sees something new between Bree and his King's Mage. Something Bree can't explain right now, not even to herself. So again, he turns back to Bree with like confusion and hurt. But then she's like trying to figure out what to say, how to like explain to him that like everything's cool. And then she says, it was just an accident. Which, of course, sounds crazy.
Serious.
sounds like something you're not supposed to say when your maybe boyfriend catches you with his King's Mage who may or may not hate you. Like, it was just, what was an accident?
Y'all hate that? What's going on?
He's like, what do you mean? But so then Nick is like, his voice is soft and pained. He says, what was just an accident, B? And Bree realizes then that he thinks she means something with Cell. So she's like, okay, no, like she's freaking out. She wants to both reassure him and also get the fuck out
Get the
ASAP.
hell out.
And so she, so behind Cell, Tor and Sarah are both in pajamas. A crowd is gathering. They'll know, they'll all see me like this. So she doesn't want an audience. She doesn't want her walls to break. She wants to like keep up this like mask, I guess, in front of these people. So then she explains the car, that night, the hospital, no one, just an accident. Understanding passes through him and blood drains his face. The devastation on his face is all for Bree and all for her pain. Which again, so he puts aside whatever confusion and questions he has about Cell and is like, oh shit, like this is a difference. You know what I mean? Like this is about Bree. But then Bree says, if I accept it, if it touches me, I'll shatter. I know I will. He reaches for me, but I raise both palms and his hand falls. That simple gesture, pushing him away, looks like it breaks him as much as it breaks me. And so Nick asks how they found out, and then he glances up at Cell and then goes, with him? He said, Cell.
This?
Cell?
You couldn't wait a few hours?
You knew where I was running. You knew where I was. And you
bar for bar.
You got a broken clavicle, and I was coming right back.
Bro, you were supposed to be sleeping.
In a minute, in the moments I was leaving you to heal, you was trying to heal for real.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I'm sorry, Bree whispers. This was all a mistake. So then Russ pulls up. Nick is shaking his head no. The car idles loud enough for the Legendborn in the foyer can't hear, but Nick can, and so can Cell, because Cell got the super hearing. She says, I can't be here anymore. Nick is like, no, wait. Please, I need you. You have to know I choose you. I want you, Bree. If Camlan is coming, I want you. It's a moment. I'm sorry.
We need a notebook in the rain.
Yes. He said, please.
It's just like angsty, sad R&B vibes.
Yeah. it's
we need a Cisco spinning.
I'm gonna find the song that I'm
Ain't nobody do drama like a Cisco.
No, he doesn't. It's very true.
Ripping his shirt
but
open,
yeah, so like it's so so it's definitely like this moment where again he's got a lot of questions still, but again the most important thing for him right now is Bree and like his feelings for her. But Bree is like, no, you don't. You don't want me to be doing this again, because she's feeling all of this guilt. She's feeling like she dragged him into this, and all for nothing, she presumes. So then she climbs into the car and leaves him behind, standing alone in the gravel as they drive away.
Is it also raining? I can't remember.
It's not raining. It's not raining, but it should have been. I love nothing more than a very like obvious rain trope in the middle of drama. It's one of my favorite things. Rain. It's the only thing I remember about the Incredible Hulk movie. That every time there was an emotional moment, it would be raining.
It was raining.
Every single time.
I feel like the 1998 or 99 version of The Parent Trap did this very well. Like the final scene with like mom and like sister leaving to go to London, and it's just like raining, and then the song that goes with it every time, and you're just like, man, I'm right in my feelings.
It really hits, you know, like
it really hits.
It really does.
That's
but
so
it
funny
wasn't raining, and that's okay. No, I mean, I love it and hate it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so...
It's like one of the bigger reasons why...
I think it can be done really well. Mm-hmm. When I say in terms of the Hulk, that's the only thing I remember. It's not because it's good. It was one of those things where when I was watching it, I was just like, oh, again? It's raining again? Like, where are y'all?
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why, and, you know, don't at me, I don't care. I don't like Peter Jackson. And when I have a harder time, because it's like, let me get to the emotion on my own. Like, you don't need to like be like sad. Like because he will give you rain, an orchestra, a pushing close up on the face. Like, I get it.
I don't think I've seen any Peter Jackson works outside of Lord of the Rings.
The King Kong. I never saw Lord of the Rings. The King Kong was the one where I was like, no.
Is
absolutely
Tom Hiddleston in that one as well, or is that a different?
No, it's a different one. It's an earlier King Kong.
Oh goodness. Well, I already sound okay. I'm waiting for this song. So let's get into chapter 41, and to be clear, chapter 41 starts part 4, which is it the final part, or is there another part after this?
It's the final
part.
The
final part in this story. We are at the final countdown for what we know is to come. But in our breakdown in these episodes, I'm sure it's gonna really hit home, because reading it through is one thing. Reading it through and like contemplating the intricacies of it as we go,
it's a whole other thing.
So I'm already ready for this part 4 to be giving us a lot. And so we are straight up in compartmentalization Bree. She honors her mom's Bennett not in it methods by trying to adopt them herself. She, you know, the whole time we've been complaining about how Bree was not answering her phone, not checking her phone. What is a phone? Why does she have one? That was how she relates to her phone. Well, now that comes in handy, because that's how she treats everyone from the order when they try to ping her. She's like, William, Smitty, why? For what? I don't know you. Like, she's Mariah Carey, and the order is J-Lo. She does not know them. So she's like, on this very much like, I have to study. I'm going to go to class. I'm going to eat my meals and repeat. That's it. And it's funny because, girl, it's week 2. Is it week 2?
Maybe 3. Maybe 3.
It's week 3 in her college career on an accelerated pathway. And she is now putting her head together, which I feel like it can be a usual kind of journey with people. They get to college and while out for a little bit, and then they'd be like, you know what? I actually need to pull together. I
feel like that kind of happened. Well, I don't know if that happened with me, but I've seen it happen a lot. I think it happened with me a little bit in reverse, where I was like, okay, now I know where I'm going. I know where my classes are. Now let me go out of control. I know that my mom is not going to just pop up out of nowhere, because, that was always the constant fear with me. Still happens sometimes, but, now let me see what happens if I decide to not go to class and go get some coffee and wander. So yeah, I don't begrudge her.
Yeah, everyone goes through their journey in different ways. This is Bree's journey, and
sometimes you have to get mauled by a demon a few times before you think, let me focus on my studies.
Well, that wasn't what happened, but
that was not the thing that made
that wasn't the impetus.
You would
got mauled by a few demons.
You would think
that was actually what brought her
watch night. You think we're having an impromptu watch night with demon blood in her hair would have been like, you know what? This is too much. This is too much. Team too much. No. Gotta let this go. No. It was the fact that she realized that her mom had seen the similar things to what she'd seen and had chosen a different way. And she's like, oh, shoot. I'm effing up. And sure, this is where we are. But this is like, as her bestie and roommate, Alice is seeing this like direct flip in behavior and is going to confront her about it. And I'm glad she does. And it's funny that she decides to do it at breakfast, when it's hilarious that she woke Bree up early to go to breakfast. And this reminds me of whenever I was in college, because I never made it. Look, I am chronically late to things, sure. But also, I don't need breakfast. If I'm going to have breakfast, it's usually like a smoothie or something. Like, I really don't, I'm not pressed about breakfast. Coffee. So whenever...
It depends for me.
I'm just not pressed about it. Like, brunch, I can do a brunch. Breakfast?
I miss brunch so bad. I told my friends the other day, I said, I'm going to have to start watching the NFL again, just so y'all invite me out so I can go have brunch.
Because brunch timing works for me and the meals work for me because it's like a mixture of both in a way that I actually enjoy it. And breakfast, I've got to be in a real mood for it. Like it has to really hit.
Sometimes you get sick of having sweet stuff. Like I don't want pancake every single time, though I will.
Or French toast. You'd be like,
yeah. Sometimes I want the savory, but then the savory always got like 15 eggs on it.
And then also, I'm sorry, it's the breakfast tangent, but also like I just like as someone with like dietary issues, it's just like I can't be having all that. So that's a lot on my stomach that is not going to go well. So I have to be very selective and thoughtful about when I'm going to engage and like if it's worth engaging with or if there are options that work for me that I'm going to be okay with. So brunch usually tends to work out better for me generally because breakfast is very bad dietarily sometimes. So I'm talking about the timing because I also, as someone who was also pulled out of bed early when we were in college to go to breakfast and the breakfast was mid and I was like, y'all pulled me out of here for what? But okay.
For this?
For a waffle on the griddle. Y'all walked me out of here for this waffle on the griddle. So sorry. I could anytime I go to a hotel and they have a continental breakfast, it's the same thing, same little waffle iron.
COVID really solidified this for me, but in general, I was like, free breakfast is not the thing, and even the coffee.
No,
that's not a make or break.
It's not. It's no.
So shout out to the Hampton Inn in Santa Cruz. That banana came in handy. Them fruits. But that's about it.
Yeah. So I feel like Bree is like in a similar lane of thought. Because she is like dragging in this breakfast. She's just like her brain's not all the way on. Same. And she's just like letting warm pools of butter expand from the horoscope section to an article in the newspaper as she's reading it because she's not, her body's not even pulled up together yet. She's just eating and able to read, and those are the two things her body's able to do right now. She's not functioning fully, and it's not helped by the emotional detachment she's trying to like compartmentalize right now in this moment. And I think maybe strategically Alice tried to pull her into this moment where she's kind of like vulnerable enough to like confront about the change that she's had. And Alice mentions something and Bree misses it. And so she asks Bree, "Did you hear what I just said?" Bree answers, "No." And she goes into confrontation mode where she puts her cup down and gives Bree a long stare. And Bree, she says to Bree, "You've been weird all week." And Bree is avoiding her gaze and pokes out of her bowl of grits with a shrug and then says, "Just focusing on school stuff. I got a C- on an English test, so it's clearly warranted. What were you saying?" And then Alice is like, "You've never gotten below an A in English in your whole life. Like, what is going on?"
There's two things here. One, I really appreciate that she's coming at this with concern and not judgment like she was at the beginning of this book. Also, I mean, a C is, I get, she's got a lot going on and she's been struggling. But I would say, like, when you go to college, that is no longer really the litmus. Yeah, like you definitely need time to adjust before you get back to whatever grades you were used to. But
even with AP, I had AP history and I got not great scores when I first started. I was like, "Excuse me, I am a top student. I always do well. How dare you?" And then it was like, "Oh, you actually have to study before you could just take your notes in class and then come to the next class and you'd be on top of it." Guess what? Now you actually have to spend time at home reading ahead for the next chapter so you can be on top for the next one. Next time you have a class discussion, and then a class discussion will help you with your notes and your test review practice.
I will say, as someone who like excelled in English and like the written, arts and humanities stuff, that learning how to study thing, they need to figure out how to do that earlier because that was the thing that killed me in college. I was like, I don't even know how to study.
They had a first year experience course for us where they were we went through like study things, like things we're supposed to know, like you don't you have to pick up to do in like college. But then I had first year experience my second semester of college. I was like, okay, great. Like so useful now. Right. So Alice says, I know you don't have a dress for the gala thing this weekend. We can go shopping after class. There are a ton of boutiques downtown, and I saw some sales. Bree looks away and then nods inside of her cheek. Yeah, about that. I'm not going. Alice rears back and then gawks at Bree like she's grown scales. I'm sorry, what did you just say? Bree blinks. I decided not to go through with that group, so I'm not going. Hi. Yes, hello. I regret to inform you that you've had a temporary lapse in judgment. These things happen, and I'm going to try not to make you feel too badly about it, but you're going to that gala. Bree groans. Alice, I don't want to go.
This is a hard one because if this was just a regular gala, then yeah, skip it. Not even skip it. Like, yes, skip it. Like if you felt like it, but I'm saying like if you're Alice, like yeah, pressure your friend into going to this party. But because it's the order, I'm like, she probably don't need to be there.
Right. The thing is like
deeper than just like not wanting to be social.
Yeah, from Alice's perspective, it's like we need this. Both of us. Like,
but
you need to go and deal with that hot man who you act like I'm just supposed to pretend like you stopped, you weren't all gooey-eyed about and now he just won't exist and you over it. But I need this because when have I ever gotten to style and dress someone for a gala?
And again, I get it as a friend who has not been brought in on all this. It's just that this gala is a little bit more than just a regular gala, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like if it were a regular gala, it would just be like
that because you are someone who dresses like Bree's been out here in the Star Wars city for 3 weeks.
Okay, but I'm saying if it were a regular gala, sure.
What is a regular gala? Is what I'm saying.
Like if it were just like
one that's not also a undercover selection for scions.
I'm saying something like if it were like an honor society or something. You know what I mean? Like something that's like a basic, like a regular, like
no, that's
you're
what
not
I'm
going to be in a secret society for
Bayana
it. Just like a general gala.
No, Bayana's correct as in like this isn't regular because there's a secret society and a cult underneath it. You, my good friend Porshèa, are incorrect because a gala is not a thing that comes around for a lot of people.
They come around. It's a gala every week.
They do. I feel like they do it in like college and stuff. I feel like it just depends on where you're going.
It just depends.
I was never invited, nor had the inclination to go to a gala.
I went to an NAACP gala that was with the United Union Workers, or whatever, UAW. In like high school because I was in an NAACP
because you were involved in I'm saying Bree Matthews has been walking around in a Star Wars hoodie with
what I wear on a regular day is not like
I'm saying that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you were involved. You were a joiner.
I'm saying if this were just a gala where she is not expected to have a role, if she were not like having a role within the gala, if she were just there to be a spectator or part of the crowd, then all the more reason for her not to go. But because she has a role to play within the gala, then it's kind of like, we need to figure out how to get you in the place where you're ready to go to this gala.
And see, I'm on the opposite. In the sense that Bree does not need to be messing with the order. So
we know that generally.
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying if it was just a regular gala, whether she had a role or not, but if it was a regular gala in which she was not potentially bonding herself to a scion of some 6th century white dude, then sure, she let
the gala is in her mind no matter what
to go to a party and to
no matter what.
Yeah, it's like pressure your girl to be social and go to the gala. But given the information that we have, although Alice does not have it, I'd be like if Alice knew, I feel like Alice would be like, you know what, We just go
But I
paint
feel like
nails
if
at
it were a
home.
regular gala, like a non-role fulfillment gala, I feel like Alice would be invited too. So it'd
You
be
and
more of
this
like
regular
they
gala
both be
thing is
going.
killing me.
But that's not what I. But
Killing
yes,
me.
sure. I'm just saying in terms of the pressuring. It's one of those things where it's kind of
Alice would
like,
be
I don't know,
invited
maybe
too.
Bree has a point in not going, but
But that's
Alice
not
does
her
not
point
know
in
that.
not going, though. It's not like even her reason. It's like just like avoidance and like.
Yeah,
She
but
has
what
a
is she
fully-
avoiding? She's avoiding being bonded to Nick, partially because, like, you know, her own personal like emotions around why she doesn't want to be bonded is another thing. But like, she don't need to be bonding herself to none of these people. So that's
She doesn't. She doesn't. And I think she thinks she's like doing the thing her mother would do, and that's I believe smart thing.
and I feel like it is the smart thing, even though I know we also know
I'm
she
not saying
wouldn't
it's not
do
the
it
smart.
anyway.
I'm just saying.
So it's a lot of
Yeah.
We
different
have
It's
to
a
move
lot
on
of
because we
complex-
will agree to
yeah.
disagree, and both of y'all.
I don't even know what we're disagreeing on, honestly. I feel like we're all
on the
just
idea
talking.
that, like,
I feel like we're on different components of the story that we're all.
But I
like,
feel
yeah,
like
we're
we're
agreeing
referring
on.
to.
We're not agreeing on the importance and or rarity of galas.
That's what you are not agreeing on. We're on different components of like what like
I
role
just feel like we're
fulfillment
all
gala.
arguing on two different things.
It's different
We
things.
just gotta
three
move
different
on.
things.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I'm confused
you
about where
have
the
thoughts about. If you listener have thoughts about the gala and or what Bree should or should not be doing, please let us know. We are not drawing team, just like literally. What are your thoughts about Bree in this gala?
Yeah, because we're having three different conversations. It's fine.
We sure are.
So, Bree groans, Alice, I do not want to go. And Alice is like, you're going to the gala, even if I have to force you into one of Charlotte's dresses. And Bree describes Alice's eyes have gone flinty behind her frames. And I love that for her. Bree sighs and folds up her greasy newspaper, tosses it onto her tray and says, you don't understand. Alice crosses her arms and says, I understand you completely stopped talking to that hottie hot boy who adores you, and you won't explain why. And it sounds like you did nothing wrong. I understand that you have an invitation to a black tie event that you seem to want to toss in the trash. And I understand that I begged my parents to let me stay on campus this weekend just so I could help you get ready. And honestly, Bree, we were too nerdy in high school for me to let you throw this opportunity away.
As I'm saying, Al said we need this. This is for both of us.
She is.
We about to get dressed up.
I just
feel like YouTube looking at hairstyles.
She's like, I'm vicariously living through you, and I'm telling you, I've looked at multiple makeup artists with your skin tone.
I got
YouTube.
a Pinterest board.
I have some hairstyles that I saw that might work for you. Like I've
been on YouTube nightly. You've been doing your homework. I've been doing mine too. I got the smoky eye down.
So Bree gapes at Alice after she makes this proclamation. 16 of what has gotten into you? Alice replies, 16 years of Disney movies that I know that you watched just as much as I did. So what's really going on here? And that was where I was like, and you know what, Alice, that's where we're together, because I'm like, when I think about the social things that I did growing up, and even to this day possibly, but more like when I was growing up, there were things that I felt like I should do as like the teen experience, because like as I saw in movies or TV shows or whatever, that was a teen experience. I should go to prom when I have the opportunity, because when am I ever going to have the opportunity to be 16 and go to prom again? You know, you only do it once. When else am I going to go do this other like big movie conflict point or whatever in a teen life again? I'm gonna go do it. So I feel like, yeah, there is something that could go on here, an article perhaps that probably has already been written, maybe even a book that has been written about like the way that pop culture has like put a lens towards what certain experiences should be, or what kind of experiences that you need to have in your life as you're progressing through life. And yeah, I feel like everyone has been cultured to think that at some point in their life they will have a reason to dress up in a fancy outfit and go to a big event. And For some people,
Robyn, you've been
it's
to
like
multiple weddings. That counts.
right. But I'm saying for some people that might be like, I'm gonna avoid that at all costs. And others, I feel like it's like, oh, it's something that's supposed to happen at some point. So I may as well be ready. Be ready so I don't have to get ready. And that's two different camps. There's people in between, I'm sure. But I'm just saying those are the two camps of like being
I had to
influenced
do
by
it
pop
because my
culture.
mom was like very much a like prom person, and like we had to. Yeah, I was like the whole thing. I was like, I don't understand why this is happening to me.
She was influenced by her social.
She just was very much like, if you don't go to prom, you'll regret it. And I was like, I can't see that being the case. And to this day, I don't even remember prom, but like, I know I went, and I know it was a big deal. And I know that the thing I remember most about prom is that at dinner, we went somewhere in La Jolla, and I spent $35 on a chicken Caesar salad, and I'm still mad about it because there's no reason to spend $35 on a chicken Caesar salad.
One plate? No.
In
the
early 2000s, inflation has gotten out of control. So that same salad today probably is like $60, and I don't understand. I didn't understand then. I don't understand now. The wedding thing is different because it is a thing that you do kind of. I don't know. I always feel like this level of almost like obligate. Like I want to go, and I want to celebrate you. I've never been to like a super fancy wedding too. I'll say that they've mostly been like pretty casual, or I don't know what that like California chic type of beach vibe, I would say.
But you still dress up in your what you would walk around town wearing.
Yeah. But for me, it always comes down to like, how do I do this with the least amount of stress possible, and then also like it's worth doing so that I can go celebrate my friends. But it's not anything where I'm like, ooh, I get to be, I'm not looking forward to the dress up part. That's the part where I'm like, hopefully I don't embarrass nobody. Which Bayana, who came with me to find the dress for the last wedding I went to, I was pretty sure I was like, I kind of know what I want to wear because I want it to be comfortable. If it has pockets, bonus, and I don't want to embarrass nobody. And I don't want to be confused. I hate wearing clothes that are confusing. Don't put me in something that needs to have instructions for how to get in and out of it.
That is the reason why, to this day, I'm in a fight with wrap dresses. But that's an aside we can get to some other time. Bree yells, I don't want to go. She's loud enough that Alice flinches and that two girls sitting beside them in the cafeteria turn in their direction. She pulls her bag out from under the table and then starts zipping it up and then says, I need to get to class. Alice watches Bree shaking her head. This ain't it, Maddie. What's not it? This. She waves her hand at me. A couple of weeks ago, you were all over this group, texting this Nick kid all the time, going to therapy, staying out late. And this week, all of that's gone? You get back to the room earlier than I do? You spend more time studying than I do? Read the school newspaper? And I know you're not sleeping. She shakes her head. This is not it.
I hate / love friends like this. Because it's like, God damn it, let me have my grief or like my secrets too.
She's let her soak long enough for her to do this. She let Bree soak for whatever amount of time it is for her to observe all of this.
But I feel like Bree is thinking like, all right, I'm doing that now. I'm doing what Alice asked me to do. So I'm actually going to convince her that things are getting back to normal. And then Alice immediately was like,
yeah, clocked.
This don't smell right.
That's not true. But I'm gonna say this. Okay, let me finish with their conversation. So Bree says, you get mad at me for not taking school seriously enough, and now I'm taking it too seriously. A couple of weeks ago, I came home crying too. Is that what you want? Of course not. But this week, you're a zombie. You know what you need? Bree stands up and sighs. Are you gonna say Jesus? No, she points at me. You need homeostasis.
I don't understand that. Can you guys explain like you did with the square thing? Okay.
Did you just biology me? Sure did. Bree falters with no comeback in sight. In the end, she gives up and just says, I gotta go. She picks up her tray and leaves, ignoring the look of disappointment on Alice's face.
All right, science me. What is homeostasis? That's like a state of normal neutrality.
Yeah,
Something?
like finding your center. Like if you find your core, if you find your center, then you're like you're balanced. You're not like it's your common is kind of like your default.
Okay.
But if you have like they say, what did they say later? Crap, my notes. Equilibrium. Like, so I acquaint it more with like humans with equilibrium because I have issues with balance and spatial awareness, and so sometimes I will bump into things and then I have to find my center because I'm wobbly. And I always think of it in that way about equilibrium and like finding the thing that keeps me from wobbling all out of control because I will fall over. If I don't find my center, I will fall, and it happens plenty.
Okay. I love when you have no idea what something means, but you try to get it through context and then you find out that you were correct. I was correct.
Yeah.
I just wasn't
Yeah.
sure I was correct.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, that sounds sciencey.
And I know there are people who are sciencey who listen to this who might explain it more sciencey. So sorry if I did not do that, but
Shauna. Doc. Don't come at us, Doc.
Don't. Yeah, me. I'm not pulling that up. It's been years since I've been in science class. This is how my brain has interpreted it over time. So later that night, Bree is contemplating life in the order. She even makes herself imagine the gala, and it hurts her to do that. And she's kind of just having this moment of realization that like Alice is right. She doesn't have a homeostasis. She doesn't have an equilibrium, and she also knows that that Dr. Hartford saw it and voiced that to her, and that's when she pushed the Dr. Hartwood away. And also, Dr. Hartwood told her that she wanted nothing of Bree, not wanting to reach that equilibrium. So this compiles with her general like umbrella revelation is that her agony has a hunger and it doesn't want truth. It just wants to, and she kind of like, distracted herself with thinking she wanted the truth of her mother's death. But what she actually wanted was to feed her agony more sorrow until no other emotion is left. That's how her grief is manifesting for herself. She's having a very, like, even if she's not going to a therapist right now, she's like giving her like mind time to like actually contemplate where her emotions are coming from and how she's actually processing life right now. And that's what she's come to, which is something that we've kind of like, we've realized this whole time, but she's had to come to that realization for herself. And it's a good, like, hopeful aha moment for her, but it's also kind of like a very, very sad aha moment to have. It's like, I'm feeding my agony more pain on purpose, but I'm disguising it as truth. So Alice is not going to just leave it as a confrontation, and little does Bree know she's called in the big guns, and the big guns equal Bree's dad, who shows up on campus and announces himself by calling Bree, and she's like, it's interesting that he's calling me at this time because he knows he doesn't usually call me until after I'm done with my classes, and most of my classes are afternoon. So she's like, hey, and he's like, are you busy? And she's like, nope, I have a class at 10. What's up? And then he's like, come have breakfast with me, my treat. She chuckles and says, F only. And he's like, nah, come downstairs and bring your books.
Daddy said, I'll pull it up.
He said,
I'm here.
I'm not just being a sweet dad, like, oh, come sit, come hang. No. Like, come on downstairs. We'll be back in time for your class. I hope that means you're ready to go outside. I don't know what you gotta do. Get yourself together. Let's go. She gets down there, and she realizes that he took a 4-hour drive there. So if he's there with her, he took off of work. and she also realizes that Alice is the one who had him come in. He calls her a good friend. And Bree has a moment where she just like is sitting in her dad's presence in the car, and she's just like feeling like a bittersweet feeling of like his car smells like home, and she feels a twinge of pain. She expects to feel a twinge of pain, and she does, but it's also chased by warmth. So any like reminders of home, and I guess are also reminders of her mother and like what used to be. And so she, every time she's around her dad, she feels that bittersweet feeling.
And like I think also there's like you kind of feel like some, I think also, well, I guess there's two things. One, like there's also this like the absence of it, you know what I mean? Like I think she was feeling really like claustrophobic in the house. But now that she's had some time away, she's also had time to miss it. And so it's like the like nostalgia and the like she has a little space, even though like shit has gone to hell and she's like even more devastated than she was or has been in a while. Like it's given her time to kind of like appreciate those things and not to feel like she's being like constrained by them, which I guess is growth in a sense.
Yeah, but it's also like she's not around them every day, so she doesn't have to feel
Exactly.
stifled. Yeah.
And I think it's also like one thing about grief that I've experienced at least is like it can be very all consuming, and like people say this a lot too. It like it does come in waves, and like you're never like fully over it, but like time does do a lot. When you're in the moment, you feel like you're not ever gonna feel any different. Like this is just how you're gonna
What
feel
it
from
is.
yeah, it's what it is. And it's not that yeah, I guess it's just it's not as sharp to her anymore. You know, she has, even if she has like this persistent grief and she's and it's traumatic grief, like it still is all of those things, but it's not as sharp. You become, you know, it's like when you jump into cold water, like after a while it starts to warm up and you become acclimated. It doesn't mean that that's healthy, but she's a little bit
Right.
more settled in her grief.
And I think like it's
time.
weird. In some ways it is, in some ways it isn't. Like obviously right now she's not in a great space, so I wouldn't say
Right.
like, you know, she's doing great in this moment. She's definitely not, but it is like the grief is still like she's still working through it, even if there are a lot of
Right. And then that's yeah, I'm not
falls and
again.
things that she like has like tried to push away that are now coming to the forefront. It's like grief is still finding its way. You know what I mean? Like it's still doing its thing in the way that it does, if that makes sense.
Right, yeah, and exactly. Like she's not over the grief and it's still, like I said, still traumatic and stuff, but it's the same thing as like when you um get hurt, right? There's like this sharpness and newness to pain that dulls over time. It doesn't mean that it doesn't still hurt. It just doesn't it's not as shocking, I
Yeah.
guess. And you start to like kind of understand and get not used to the pain, but kind of used to the pain. Like you get there's not this like surprise element to it. So
Yeah, so far it sounds like if we talk about Bree's reaction to pain, she has instant recoil and then run away. Like those are her like guess avoidance, but she like the feeling of pain makes her instantly just like want to get away from it. And I think it's not, I guess she's like the pain is changing in a way that she's able to like kind of like change how she reacts to it, but also I think she's learning more about her grief and herself that's allowing her to think through like why she might want to change how she's interacting with the grief. But she's in a place where she's like, I gotta, the only way I can deal with this is and move forward is if I get answers to some things that I need to, you know, like she's starting to figure out what she needs to actually get to a place that doesn't look like recoiling all the time. And I noted that like Bree support network very much is about breakfast. Like this is
which I love that for them, you know?
Yeah.
I love that, like, and
it's
maybe
like
this is a secret
Bayana's family
Bree
and
thing.
brunch.
Yeah, we love to make a brunch. I
Bayana's
even live like on the weekends. Like I don't really like I usually eat breakfast now. I didn't always, but I do now because I get up so early that by the time breakfast hits, I actually am hungry. But on the weekends, I'd be like, I want a breakfast sandwich. Like I want something more like hearty than just like, or not hearty, but more involved than like oatmeal or like toast or whatever. But yeah.
And I love that it's like maybe it's a Bree thing because she also really needed that blueberry biscuit. So maybe she just like they're like this is her love language is breakfast. Like you can always get through to Bree with a breakfast. So where of course does her dad take her? Waffle House.
I don't understand this, but this is also
California culture.
But as a Californian who moved to the Midwest, like I saw Waffle House and immediately recoiled, and I still don't understand the affinity for it because it feels like I understand the love of like a good like feedy kind of looking taco shop or like you know what I mean or like the hole in the wall like this is where you get the best boba, you know what I mean, or like they only spend no money on paint. but the taco hits or whatever. Waffle House is a chain, and they all look like they have not been cleaned since they first opened. And everyone talks about like the shenanigans that go down in the Waffle House, like just the crazy stuff you go and see at a Waffle House in the middle of the night. And I still don't understand like why do you go?
It's like Walmart
food
when
is
you're
not.
from yeah, it's like Walmart when you're from a place that doesn't have a lot going on. You don't have a lot of local things like that are open or whatever, and it's like something that just always going to be readily available, like a Walmart in a lot of places. It's like
I imagine it's like a nostalgia factor too. It's like if it gets you early.
I don't think that I think the first time I ever had Waffle House was probably when I was like 14, like something like that. Like it was like, I mean, early enough, but I know I don't see it as some place that I'm like. Some people do have a like stronger affinity for Waffle House than I do, but personally, for me, like Waffle House is just like, and I feel like most people that I know, like, cause it's not something you go regularly, but it's like if you are up late, and usually this is like college, everyone's out late on the weekend, and it's like we gotta stop somewhere. Everything is closed. What is consistent that everybody in this car can probably get down with? Waffle House.
It's funny because the only time I've been, I think it might be I don't know if it's the only time. I've been once or twice. But the time I remember the most, I was going through it too when I got taken to a Waffle House. I was going through it. And the
when you said that, I was thinking about
we to Waffle House, and I was like, great, let's go to Waffle House.
I was thinking about the Steak and Shake in college. So I can kind of get that where it's like it's open late, you know what you're gonna get. You can get some chocolate, But I've just never heard anyone like wax I mean, I've heard people like wax like this, you know what I mean? Like the Waffle House makes an appearance in like the story. But I am like I love a good diner, right? So I'm like, there's not a local diner.
I feel like local diners are harder to like again because like I'm my small town. The diners that we had were like on the town square, and they all closed by like 9 p.m. Like if you it's the Waffle House is a chain that it's open 24 hours, and like so is, and that's why I made it akin to like Walmart. These big chains are gonna be open. Their hours. You don't know your local diner out. Like you only know, especially on like the weekend and on Sundays in particular, because everything down south like to close up on Sundays. So you have to like you have your go-tos, and I feel like some people probably have built routines around the availability of like Waffle House. Yeah. And Walmart, sadly.
Because
just not trying to be a corporate show over here, but it's just
I get it. Because the Walmart thing, I definitely get. I just read another book where they like the family was like meeting up at Waffle House and they have their like standing order, and I was like, this cute little town, y'all don't have a you could do. Like, and if it was like 2 a.m., I'd be like, you go to Waffle House, but this is 10 a.m. before class.
That's what I'm saying. I think it becomes a routine thing at some point.
Yeah.
At first, it's like, oh, it's late at night, and then it becomes like, oh, let's go to Waffle House. You know, they got
You
the
have
hash
to think
browns.
about what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
I get that. Yeah.
And that's like speaking of like of becoming routine. That's exactly how Bree and her dad like interact with the server. Like the server, and this is a normal. This is a literally your normal interaction at a Waffle House. The server's gonna give you the menus. You're gonna look at it and you're like, here, like I already. Here's what I'm gonna have, and that's how both of them reacted. It's basically by rote. They just like, this is what we're gonna have.
Mm-hmm.
And as the server comes back with their drinks and then goes to get their food, Bree's dad, Mr. Matthews, is dadding. And some people, i.e. me, are catching strays because he's dadding so well. Like he's being like open and easy to talk to, and just like in a dad way where they just like, you're like, sure, your mom can be, but like dads do it in a specific way where you're like, I can probably sit here and legit say, like, I'm not gonna tell this man whatever in whatever kind of way, but I can say something and he's not gonna make me feel too bad about it. Like I can work through something with him. And I have to like think too hard about how I'm gonna talk about it. But for Bree, she really can't talk too hard because it is like the secret order and all that stuff. She doesn't want to get him involved in that. And so she's kind of quiet to start off the conversation, and then her dad then just as parents do, throws in something that like the last point of like conflict that he knows for her, and says, talks to her about like the dean, like, I hope that you're not having this change and how you're interacting with school because of the dean and anything that the dean has said to you. And Bree's
Which is
like,
crazy
boy,
to him that
like,
feels so recent to him.
Yeah.
Bree has
and
gone
it
through
should,
like
though,
1,000
ago.
dramas.
It's been 3 weeks. Like, how else? And she's. When is the last time she's called him? Like, this is like like the past day or whatever. But when's the last time she's actually seen her talk to her dad? So that's the most recent thing he knows, right? And it's so funny because Bree's like, and it does what it needs to do, and I think that's what I can't be overestimated with parents, is that even if they're off, they will say something that will be like, boy, you are late, like, let me get you caught up, you know, and it'll get you to open up in a way that you may not have initially wanted to, you know, open up. And that's what happens with Bree. And she gets to the place where she can actually get closer to what she wants to talk about with without kind of like pulling it into the order. And so she gets down to the actual thing a bit, and says, did mom ever talk to you about grandma? And he sighs heavily and then sits back. Not much. Your grandma died when she was young, 18 or so, I think, and she was gone by the time your mom and I met. I could tell her mother's death weighed heavily on her, you know, like real heavy. And Bree's surprised by that because she knows some facts about her grandma, but she doesn't know anything in particular besides that, like, her grandma didn't have any siblings and that she had died from cancer. And she says that Bree thinks about how she never really heard her mom express any pain about losing her. And Bree, so Bree's dad answers, like, it didn't come out like that. Like, it came out in how she raised you. I didn't notice at first, but she had these nerves that started up when you were, 10, 11? You do a sloppy job cleaning your room or forget to take out the trash. Didn't matter what it was. And she got on you for it. You remember? And Bree's like, that's just parents, though. He shrugs. Parents have been pushing their kids hard for decades. My parents did it. I know your grandma did it too. But your mom took it to another level. She tried to control it around you, but in private, he whistles. Anxious, rattled, sometimes straight up scared. Had nightmares about you getting hurt or kidnapped. A few years ago, started taking longer and longer for her to calm down. 1 week when you were 13, you left the milk out on the counter overnight. Remember that? It took 3 days for her to let it go. And that's when I finally told her. I said, Faye, she's a kid. She's gonna mess up. She'd say that she just wanted to get you ready to make sure you could handle yourself if we weren't around. And automatically Bree's test tightens Titans, and she wonders, did her mom know? And the answer is yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And also, like, it's so funny. I go back and forth with Bree's mom about what she kind of like
Her choices.
Yeah.
and like her reasons for keeping things from Bree. In the sense that like she was clearly prepared, like she knew what was, whether her mom specifically like prepared her for her death, I don't know if that was true, but like she definitely came into it knowing about her history and what that stuff, you know, like what was coming through her, and like what that power was. And then she kind of just like denied that from Bree while knowing that she couldn't stop it. And so that's the part where I'm kind of like, ma'am, you should have said something. Like, you're trying to prepare her, but you're still not quite preparing her for the right thing. And or you're like doing this roundabout way to do it, and instead of it actually like preparing Bree, like now you're gone and she has all these questions and she's learning about magic for the first time. She's about to like inherit all of this like this thing, right? And like she has no clue what that is. And so that part I feel like she like really did Bree a disservice in that way. I think this also, like, this passage shows a lot about like Black generational trauma and the way that like folks go through these really horrible things and then don't talk about it, and then it comes out in like really, you know, disciplinary actions in order to like prepare your kids for the real world. And so then you're just passing that trauma on without fully like explaining where it's coming from,
or analyzing it for yourself,
without going to therapy, as Bree's dad kind of brings up in a second. But like just kind of again passing that pain and that trauma on, and not on purpose, right? It's not like you're doing what you think is necessary. You're doing all that you can to like
what you
make sure your
like
kids
safe. You're thinking
right, and you want them to be safe.
Like,
you want them to feel like they can, you know, be smart in the way that they move around the world. But in that, like, not again, because you're not fully interrogating because you're not fully explaining to the kid what you're doing and why and like what that means. It just kind of models, it not only like puts that trauma on them, but also models to them how they should act and then how they should treat their own kids. And it just becomes this like cycle. And so I like that Tracy incorporates this in here, and obviously she uses like the magic and the line and all that stuff to kind of, it makes it fantastical or whatever, but it also kind of drives the point home.
But
in a really like poignant
so I have
way.
two things. One is a question that I'll get to afterwards, but like one of the things that I always think about too when it gets to like the, you know, parents have been driving their kids, especially Black parents driving their kids harder, like disciplining more, is like having like we all probably have had that sense of like you have to work twice as hard to get half as far type of thing, which does allude to systemic oppression and racism. But like when you're driving them that hard, I know for me, growing up in like predominantly white spaces, it was also like a lot of things were not as explicitly tied to like, these are like, we're preparing you because like this is something that specifically Black women are going to have to deal with, or this is something that specifically Black people are going to have to deal with. And then you're seeing the people around you and you're like, they don't got to be home by the time the street lights come on, or like they don't have to do this or they don't have to do that. And so it's like, you're preparing me for the world, but like no one else is getting prepared like this. So, you know what I mean? And so at certain levels, you do kind of understand like, oh, my world is going to look different. But that seems like sometimes is left for the child to also understand, where it's like the discipline just shows up as like discipline and like anger without like, or even without the anger, without them like kind of verbalizing the anger is based in fear, and the fear is based in racial trauma. And like, you know, the getting twice as, or being twice as good to get half as far is based in like systemic issues that are like walls that are built up against you, as opposed to like the way that white people like to, you know, explain it, which is another thing that, you know, Black kids are getting thrown at them, which is like, you know, bad apples, or, you know, there are some racist people, but it's like, no, like yes, that's true, but like there are also just like whole ass institutions that are set up to be against you, right? And so like, and I don't know if it's a fact of like parents and people like not having that language to fully explain why they're doing it, like you were saying about it, like it then trickles down to the child, and the child is like, well, this is just how things are done when they have kids, right? And so no one has been able to fully articulate and explain that. And I think that's something that I've noticed, at least, is kind of happening more with like social media and stuff like that. It's like, oh, I understand. Like the streetlights thing, I was like, oh yeah, that's just like a good signal for kids who probably don't have a watch or don't have, you know, whatever, to be like, streetlights come on, you come in the house. And then like social media was like, oh no, sundown towns. Like that immediately comes from that. And then you're like, oh, okay. Like, you know, and it was like obviously like a oh duh type of situation when I figured it out. But like I would not have been able to like articulate or make that clear cut line until I was exposed to like someone actually like, you know, doing a video essay about it or whatever. So that's like one point where I think that even as educated and smart as Bree's mom was, and it's something that someone with anxiety I struggle with a lot too, is like having the language to really articulate what you're trying or what you're feeling or what that anxiety is very difficult. But then it leaves the person dealing on the other side of your anxiety just being very confused and lost and not understanding, like, as irrational as some anxiety is, like in your brain there is a rationality to it, right? Like I say I love you every time I like get off the phone with anyone, and like that's because like I am always thinking like, what if this is the last time I talk to that person? And I can say that and people are like, oh, that makes sense, that's sweet. But I'm like, no. I have like a a deep fear of you dying, you know, like, or something bad happening. That's harder to articulate in the sense of like what anxiety feels like, because it is not logical or rational. So I feel bad for her, but then I also feel like, yeah, I feel bad for Bree's mom, but then I also feel like there does need to be this moment in which you are, you know, saying like, this is what you're actually coming up against, and this is what like your actual history is. And like, yeah, Bree is 16, and I think I said this before, is like, I don't remember, I know that we'll find out more about like the blood craft and stuff like that. I don't remember if there's like a set time frame, and maybe she thought she had more time, but it feels like, you know, she was 18 when her mom passed away. 16 seems like a good time to at least start having these conversations or give her some sense of what's to come, and how much of it is her anxiety and denial and saying like, if I do this and I do this and do this, I can beat this curse, while also still feeling very beholden to it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to, if you voice something, you give it power, but you also know that it is something that is, you know, part of your history. So it's complicated, but it also is like at the same time, it's like very not easy, but like she could have been like, Bree, I'm gonna do everything I can to kind of try to figure out a fix to it, but this is historically like what we've been up against. Here's my question: is there a magical reason why they don't have siblings? Like they just have the one girl?
No, I don't think that I just don't think they're around long enough for it to think.
I can't. They might say though,
because it feels like
I don't remember. If there is one, I don't remember it.
Yeah, I don't remember it being explicit.
They might say because but there's a reason why they only have daughters. But I think
they only have daughters, but it doesn't say only, like they can only have one. I don't remember
because
saying
that like is what stood out to me was like, I think that the grandmother didn't have any siblings either. Her mom doesn't have any siblings, and then now Bree doesn't have any siblings. So I'm like, is there a reason why? I know that they explicitly say like they only have daughters,
right?
But. And we'll hopefully get there.
But if they only have daughters, like, it's like, why not have
exactly
multiple daughters? Like, yeah, I don't.
Because to me, it's like
it's interesting. I think it's
like the part that I'm thinking of is that grief and trauma of being left or being orphaned, but also feeling very alone as an only child too. You're going through it alone.
And having no one else to carry that information that you learned on. Like it's like it feels like it's a curse that's set up for no one to be able to learn. But I think that's where I'm. So when I think about Bree's mom and this thing, there's two different things here for me that I like, her and Bree. For her, I feel like that's the thing about death, is that we always, even if we feel like we know enough around, like, oh, someone's sick and their doctor said that they have at least X amount of months left or whatever. Even if we think we know the parameters of death, we never really know how it's going to affect us or how it will show up. And even if someone's sick and they are given X amount of months to live, it doesn't preclude them from walking out and getting hit by a bus. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't really, you never really know when it's going to happen. And I feel like that kind of happened to Bree's mom. I think some of her, for me, and I'll get more into this whenever we get to that part of the chapter, and for that part of the discussion here. I think that part of it was that I guess she made a decision that somehow by not talking to Bree about, and it makes me wonder about how much trauma she had from whatever interactions that her mother had with root work, how that came onto her. Because why did she avoid root work so much that Bree didn't even notice it as part of her mom's daily life? So she probably didn't even like use it in her regular life, right? And how much of that influence, how much of her like trauma from whatever root work she witnessed with her mother or whatever during her lifetime,
it probably was the thing at school.
We don't know that, though. And
we don't know, but she was definitely using root at school.
But she wasn't using it enough that she was like in community with others, like the way that.
Well, no, because Patricia was saying that some folks were more secretive, or they had their own like communities.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but
so she wasn't trying to join other communities, but they knew that she practiced.
Yeah,
she
but
just
I'm saying that
they knew solo.
That the people who were secretive tended to be the blood work people or whatever as well. And I just wonder, what does the blood work mean? Like, what is, because Patricia doesn't know what that community looks like. So what trauma?
I know what it was. It was, I'm probably going to get her name wrong, but it was Esther's punk ass. She went and did a memory walk and met her ancestor and said, ooh, you's a cold-hearted woman. And then wanted to stay away from it. Because Esther would be tripping. And is it Esther? It's Esther.
I feel like it has to be something within her lifetime.
Her ancestor that when, remember, like, Arthur is in her head and then her ancestor is in her head? Maybe it's not Esther. Vera. Is it Vera? It might have been Vera. I feel like Bree's mama met Vera and said, no, you're not going to ever meet my daughter. And keep her.
No, I definitely thought it was the run-in with the order. You could have left it, but thank you.
I think that, so for where I am, I just really feel like something happened to her as she was growing up with the community or whatever, for her to decide that like she didn't want to pass the information over to Bree for whatever reason. And so that impacted the way that she thought she could raise her. Because I've also just recently read Mermaids Never Drown. And there were a couple stories about mothers and daughters in there. And one of them is about like a mother not teaching her daughter about her being a mermaid. And it's like, it's a thing of like protection of like, if I don't tell you about it, then you'll never have to like interact with it. And then it will never come back to bite you the way that it came and bit me. Like, you just don't have to know. Like, you just don't have to know anything about it, and you can just keep moving forward. And I wonder about, like, it feels like it has to be a deep trauma, because it's like, how did she think that Bree was going to get older? And like, maybe she thought because Bree got to 16, like, and that far through puberty, and she didn't have any signs of like using any magic, like maybe she thought maybe if Bree showed signs, then maybe she would take it up with her. But
well, she wouldn't show any signs until her mom died, because that's how I think she knows that that's how it works.
But then like, why not prepare her for like showing like any? And so it's interesting to me she didn't keep her connected to, if she was part of blood work communities before, she did not keep her family connected to blood work communities as Bree was around. Her father didn't know about it. So it's just a lot going on there that are a lot of question marks around that I wonder about her mother's story a lot, and like, and I hope that Tracy gives us something from that. Like I mentioned earlier, that like a couple episodes ago, I'd love to hear a portion of a story of that is just like, I guess maybe from Cell's mother, like maybe Bree's mom and Cell's mom were friends, and like something that happened. Like it would be really cool to hear something like that, because I just feel like there's a lot that is influencing the way that she interacted with Breeze, and how she, like, how is being on your kid about picking up stuff outside of like the Black trauma of it, how is that going to be helpful when it comes to the root work and the blood work and all that stuff. And then from Bree's side, I feel like this conversation is like exactly where I think it happens in different times, like different ages and different people's lives, where they're confronted with the fact that their parents are humans who make choices that are not as well informed as they think. Like when you're a kid, you think if an adult's making a choice, they're well informed because they're an adult and they have the ability to like know a vast amount of things, and are using that knowledge to make a choice. And occasionally you might see them slip up and you'd be like, okay, maybe that was just like a one-off choice. But you tend to think of the grown-ups around you as having at least a semblance of like understanding before they do. And it's through time that you start realizing for yourself, or someone like you go through something, and it makes you come to the recognition of your own parents in that way. But I think this is very much where Bree is at in her age right now, or in like the life frame right now, where she's finally having a moment where she's in the same place that we are, where we're questioning like the choices her mother made in interacting with Bree and not sharing with Bree, and like wondering why did she not do this stuff, and if she like, does she know, like all that stuff. And I love that that's part of the story, because that's a human story to like actually get to a place where you're like, the people that I came into life with, not only are they flawed, but like I'm now sitting in a place where I can question like, why did they do what they did? Why am I doing, am I only doing things the way I'm doing them out of the same, because they showed me to do it this way, and like start questioning stuff like that. And I love that for like, this is a YA book. I love this for a YA audience, for them to have a moment to question and like critically think about like who's influenced them, and like what that influence might mean, especially if it's your parents, because that's not, adults are not infallible, and you know that to an extent, but then do you really know it until you get confronted with it with your own parents?
Yeah.
Whew.
So yeah. Oh, I love a good complex story.
And I think it's also important to say, like, there is still a lot, like, we've all read Bloodmark. There's still like a lot of questions. And as you were talking, I was like, let me check to see if we got a release date for book 3. And we don't.
Yeah.
That part.
No.
We don't.
We don't.
It's
so
really
there's still just like questions that need answers. And I think this is,
and we hope we get
it. Yeah, and this is definitely one of them, where it's like, I really hope we get some. I think we will. Maybe not all of the answers we want, but we'll get I think we will get just more clarification on the choices that her mom makes, because yeah.
I mean, I feel like I understood in the sense of like, homegirl was anxious. She wanted to hide her daughter from the order. And so the choices that she made were not necessarily the right ones, but a lot of that was made in fear, like panic, and you know what I mean? Yeah. So like, I understand it on that sense, and like her sense of like, I'm preparing her for me not to be here, and not so much I'm preparing her for what it means for her for me to not to be here, is like kind of where she
it's more and I'm saying like the choice of not preparing, like not having any semblance of root. Like, one of the things that I was thinking about when you were talking, Porshèa, about like being apart from the community and stuff, is like that sense of maybe she like understood that they were blood crafters and that's really taboo, and like not wanting people to find out, reveal herself or reveal that part of, you know, because it also to me feels really strange because it's like she didn't make the decision to be a blood crafter. She's not like
right.
And also, it's not like she's the only blood crafter. When Patricia's talking about blood crafters, she's saying that they like it's not like there's only one blood crafter line that's known for. She would know Bree. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if there's only one, like, oh, there's one family we heard about. Maybe you know what I mean? But like, there's other blood crafters out there, so why wasn't she part of a blood crafter community?
But I think it's because of the the Arthur part of it. It's not just like regular. It's not no regular shit. This is this shit is in different areas.
But how much does she know about Arthur? But how much does she know?
Right.
You know what I mean?
But my thing is that like I was thinking about that in terms of like
but
not
also
showing
they're on the
like,
run, you know, like there's other stuff we haven't gotten to yet, like that's in Bloodmark, but they're also on the run, so they're not trying to advertise that they've got all this stuff to whoever because they got what's his name after
but
them.
Also like the other part is just like not telling her about Root at all, right? Because she's like you said, she's not going to really uncover, like get in touch with her magic until after her mom passes. But like how jarring that is to like all of a sudden, how jarring it was for Bree to just be like, oh shit, I'm bursting into flame.
I'm literally.
And how do I turn it off? Which becomes a big part of Bloodmark. But yeah, so I think that we'll get some semblance, like some explanation around at least that, like what her thought process was around like not sharing the existence of Root and magic in Bree,
right?
Not the whole thing, but
and to her it could just be like I was scared and my bad. Yeah, that's fine, you know. But definitely the explanation. Like I would be satisfied, I guess, with the sense of like I fucked up because again, like adults, we don't know what we're doing. We're just kids in fully formed like our bodies have like decided and our brains have decided that we're like fully whatever, but are we though? You know?
I don't know. I feel like that's another thing. I think that's another thing about being in your like when you're your teenage stage or you're fully like critical, you know, like into your 20s or whatever, when you're fully like critically evaluating anything, the anger that comes from realizing that nobody knows, so nobody
knows anything. Everybody's just around here just vibing vibes. Yeah, it's all vibes.
And it's like, and it gets, and then the anger like turns up at every level that you realize there should be accountability, and there is like you're supposed to be like. You're a congressman who has like a law degree, and you're telling me that you don't know what these policies mean. Excuse me, no. Like,
well, then
you know,
that's different.
But I'm saying it comes. I think it stems from the same place of like these are people who are supposed to be full-grown adults with these accolades and these understanding and make like good decisions, and nobody makes good. Even if they're like well acknowledged, nobody can make a good decision. Like, what are we doing? Are we all just screwed? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Being an adult is very
it's mostly for your life. Like, only part of your life is spent being a child, but like the majority of your life is spent in this thing where you're supposed to know how to do things. And
but I think that's the problem is the assumption that we're just supposed to know as opposed to like, oh, you're just gonna learn. And a lot of it is like learning through experience.
And I appreciate that about like the generations. I think Gen X kind of got there, but I feel like millennials, and I'm just like, you know, brushing our shoulders. I feel like millennials and like Gen Z are better about like not being on that whole like stoic older generation thing where it's like when you're an adult you put away childish things and you don't do this stuff, and we're like, no, we live in fandom and we are not going to let the things that bring us joy suddenly be put in a corner because we consider it childish. Like, that's ridiculous. We're gonna like actually live in our truth and like be open to learning and like sharing stuff with people once we learn it, so then not someone else is learning with me if they want to, you know, like it's like we're a bit better about it than I feel like previous generations have been. They've been more throw that childish stuff in a box and don't pick it up again, and like enforcing it on the younger generations, and I don't think we do that, and I appreciate that that's where we are time wise.
Agreed. We should
go back.
Hurry up. I don't know. Today we got a lot of thoughts.
Yeah,
I love it.
Because this is like a culmination of a lot of stuff or whatever.
We just have a lot of it's true.
Yeah. So Bree's dad says that he thinks that her mom was scared that she'd leave you early, just like her mom left her. And they're both thinking the same thing, that she was right. And we know that she knew she was going to be right. Her hands wipe out her tears that travel down quiet streams down her cheeks. And Bree comes to acknowledgement of like her mom knew what it was like to be in her shoes. Her mom had also lost her mom at a young age. And Bree's dad stares out the window with a voice heavy of grief and regret. We weren't raised with therapy and all that, not something Black folks did or talked about. If you said something, you got sent to church. Anyway, when you applied to Carolina, it was like a dam that she had inside just broke. And all of it, every fight, every worry came out on you. Because she never wanted me to come here. Or maybe she just wasn't ready to let you go and got mad at you for forcing her hand. But that fight wasn't your fault, Bree. And it wasn't hers either. All that stuff from your mom was holding back, hiding. It's why I wanted to make sure you were seeing somebody soon. So you could get some peace, maybe head all of that suffering off at the pass. We love a Black man who's advocating for therapy.
Just like every time he shows up, I'm like, you spit that splat, bro. You're just out here. Like, I love this.
And I will say we've given Bree's mama a lot of grief this chapter, but like, shout out to you for finding a man, you know, who is going to raise your child and be like, listen, your mama, she had some issues, and we're not going to perpetrate this, you know? Therapy.
We're going to break the cycle.
We're going to break it. I'm dealing with my own grief, and in dealing with this grief, I have started to unlock some things, and we are going to break some traumas. It's the opposite of the, you know, all of this stuff on the internet. It's like, well, you couldn't choose. Why did you choose that dude? She chose the right dude.
I be saying this to my mom. So I'm like, it's like, it'll be out of like jokes or whatever. She'd be like, well, that's your father. And I'm like, nah, I didn't choose that man. You chose that man. I was born. I had no choice. This is what I was given. You, however, made all the decisions that can lead to
I will
this.
also say, I know it's jokes, but in the words of the great philosopher Whitney Adebayo, men be shapeshifting. So I'm trying not to judge women for falling for the lies of the ancient men that they fell for, but she got a good one. So
while Bree's father takes a sip of his cold coffee and grimaces, Bree sees him in a new light, that he's done all this thinking and planning and hoping for her because of the pain that he witnessed in her mother. And if that's not a good partner, seeing the pain in your wife and trying to like work it out with your daughter. Her death had sent him down his own mission to save their family, and she'd never noticed. She'd never taken the time to notice. And I love that.
Don't feel bad about it. She's been going through it.
But also I enjoy that, like, she's able to see, like, I was just talking about how, like, seeing adults and parents for who they are can be, like, groundbreaking. And I love that for this, she's seeing his consideration and planning for her is actually showing her how much he cares and how much thought he puts into being her father and taking care of her.
Absolutely. And I think it is also something where you have to get to a certain point when you realize how human your parents are. And she's in college and she's going through all of this stuff, but she's also 16. Like, I wasn't 16 when I figured that out. You know what I mean? Like, she's barely getting to the point of, like, I'm not even going to say full independence, right? She's sitting here at Waffle House with her dad because her dad was like, all right, Alice called, I'm on the way. But I do think it takes a certain amount of, like, true kind of independent, the buck stops here type of thing where it's like, oh, I can't blame nobody for this mistake because I am an adult and I made this mistake. That you're like, oh shit, this is what my parents be doing. Oh, okay. Let me start to give them some grace, because I think for me it was like when I was like 20 something and I was like, oh, my mom and dad like had me. And I'm struggling at this age. Yeah, like at this age, they had 2 kids. I'm at this age, and whew.
My mom had me when she was 20. I looked at her and I said, if you were 20 when you had me, let me tell you right now, I am 20, I would never, could not even like think it, could not conceive it. I can't, and you did it. Congratulations to you. I appreciate you. Could never do it. I see you, not me.
I mean, my mom and dad were 24 and 25 when they had me, and I was like, and I was the second? So you had done this before, and at 24, 25, you said, let's go again.
Let's do another one.
I can't even remember to pay my bills. I hadn't been diagnosed with ADHD then either, but
I'm to this day, this is semi still true. I'm like, I am very selfish and I plan to live my life selfishly, and like for the foreseeable future, I cannot conceive of being 20, doing 20-year-old things, and now I got to care of a child. For what?
Oh, so no. I'm just supposed to not go to this concert that I want to go to because I got to stay home and watch my baby?
Excuse me. I gotta sacrifice. I gotta sacrifice things to make sure my child can eat, right? Because now that's another mouth. Excuse me.
Oh, no. So you saying I can't just be like, F it, I'm out, and go move back in with my mama because I got other people? Yikes.
I can't. And the parents that did, the parents who are in our age group and have done these things at a young age, I see you. If you're not even a young age, whatever age you're doing it.
Right? She said not even at a young age, because honestly, that's too. Because at 38, I'm like, y'all had two?
This day.
What? We were talking, me and my friends were talking yesterday, and like they were like the husband was like 2 kids, and the wife was like 6. Let's compromise at 4. And I was like, give you 4 in this economy, in this environment, in this government? Nope.
The people, I'm like, y'all have way more hope in the future than I do, because I look around and it's scary.
Moving on.
Let's not go there. Let's go there. Bree asked, why didn't she move us away from here? That I'd never have known about the school. In some ways, I think your mother couldn't stand Carolina, but she loved it something fierce too. So no matter how she felt about that school, she could not get it out of her system. You would have found out about her graduating from here eventually, maybe applied anyway, just because she did.
Also, it's not like UNC is like some podunk school.
I don't.
It's not like her mama went to Wellesley or you know what I mean, or like Sarah Lawrence. I
don't have a parent that
isn't it.
I don't have a parent or a grandparent or whatever who's gone to school ahead of me, so I can't talk about that like legacy thing or whatever. But I just think that if she lived in a different state, especially if it was like multiple states away, she might not consider it because.
Well, she might, especially with her mom, like, maybe it would have happened a little later. Right. You know what I mean? Like, she maybe wouldn't have done early college, but, like...
I feel like most of the people I know who have been legacy to schools have been because their parents, like, made sure that they were around alumni events and took them to campus.
But
not really. I mean, like, when my parents...
UNC Chapel Hill is going to be on your list. Like, you might need to be...
But she said, "Why didn't she move us away?" So
but I'm saying, even like, but I'm saying, like, so my parents went to Cal, and I ended up not going to Cal. But my whole life, up until it was time for me to like decide where I was going to go to school, I thought I wanted to go, and not because all they said was, I went to Cal. I was like, that's where I'm going, man. You know what I mean? So like sometimes kids do that where you're just like, that's what my parents did, so I want to, not so much like I feel like I have to. I think maybe
kind of like,
more,
it worked out well
kind
for
of thing,
them.
you get more pressure.
So it'll work out well for me. Yeah.
Right. And also just like I want to be like my parents. That's how you like, you know, your parents are your first kind of you sometimes
they're your role
like,
models.
They're role models. They're like how you see like this is how you're supposed to be an adult and how you're supposed to like do this thing. And my parents did that. I'm trying to do it too.
And I'm saying as someone who's
and you know, there's more pressure around I would think like Ivy Leagues and that kind of legacy. But like, you know, my parents went to it was a UC. So like I was just like, cool, y'all went.
Right. And that's what I said too. Like
you
Chapel Hill is not like by any means like an easy school to get into, but it is like a very prevalent school. And like I'm saying, like my parents didn't go to like traditional college, but I grew up watching basketball and like watching our. I applied to the University of Oregon after a very exciting March Madness. Why? Not the best way to go about it. Thank God I ended up not going there, but I definitely spent my $60. Because in my brain, the schools that I knew were like the Pac-10 schools, that I knew them through sports or whatever. And so what I'm saying is like, even if they were a couple of states away, like she might not have, because of out-of-state tuition and all of that stuff, she might not have applied to UNC. But if they still lived in the South and in that like in the area of the Carolinas, she would have thought about it because it's a major school.
I lived in the South. I did not think about.
But did you think about?
But because her mom went there,
but they're an ACC school. But did you think about like the SEC school?
I don't care about sports. Does Bree care about sports? No. Like
no, I'm not saying like through sports, but I'm saying through. I mean, I guess it is through sports, but I'm like those were the schools that I saw a lot of. They were just like in my periphery. Like I didn't think I was gonna go play sports at Oregon.
No, all the kids. Like I'm gonna tell you from Tennessee, all the kids that I was in school with, everybody talked about in-state schools. They didn't talk about if it was out of state. It was like Auburn or it's supposed to be Auburn. That was it.
And
yeah, I think it's really just a matter of like, you know, your mom went there.
Yeah, I think it's more about her mom.
Be like your mom. So I'm gonna, you know what I mean? I'm gonna go there again. Whether or not she actually would have means, like I said, I ended up not going to Cal, but I thought for a good 16 years that was what was gonna happen. So,
yeah, so this like other timeline that I love that we keep getting moments where it's like a whole other timeline where her mom would have done this or Bree would have done that or whatever. And her dad is like, well, no, Bree says, I think she was right anyway. And her dad looks up and says, and is startled. What now? About me not being ready. He puts his coffee down. He says, you got that wrong. All wrong. And I thought you were smart. You're wrong because she was wrong. It was never about you being ready, kiddo. It was always about her. Stop trying to make me feel better. He fixes me with a stern glare. That's the truth. She wasn't ready to let you face the world, but you've been ready, kid. She made sure of it. He shifts in his chair, then digs into his jacket and pulls out a small square pocket Bible. She recognizes the worn, cracked brown leather and the gilded golden edges immediately. It was her mother's, the one that she carried with her everywhere. He tells Bree to flip to the back, and he says probably not something that she meant for anyone to see, but he shrugs. I love her and I miss her, and he squeezes back his tears and lets out a breath. I think she'll forgive us for snooping. She opens the Bibles with shaking fingers, and she feels like she's touching something intimate and private. She's never owned a personal Bible, but they've always seemed mystical to her. And when she gets to the blank section that her dad tells her to flip to, it's blank except for notes. And then on the very last page, there's a curly script and dated in the last year. And on it, it's a small note that says, Lord, she's already stronger than I ever was. I worry her challenges will be just as powerful. I worry that I am running out of time. Please protect her and give me the strength to let her go. I got something else for you, kid. It's in the car. Be right back. and his dad shoves out of the booth, and while Bree just continues to stare and look at the Bible in her hands. Her mother carried so much pain from her own loss, maybe the exact things that Patricia and said that Bree had inside of her: traumatic grief, PCBD grief, and then after she was born, it became anxiety. Maybe she'd been feeling the way that she could explode. Maybe she'd had Bree's fear and fury, and she hid it from her as best she could. And knowing that they had that in common, knowing that Bree's feelings are an echo of her mother's, is a revelation to Bree. It makes her sad that her mother suffered. It makes Bree wish that she could talk to her about it, and it also makes her want to tell her mom that she understood. And she feels like Bree feels like she's been chasing the hidden truth for so long, and now that she's finds that one of her mom's truths already lives inside of her, it makes it feel closer to her mom. And right now, that feels like enough. When her dad is back in the booth, he mentions that he had thought about donating her clothes, and they laugh about how many clothes that she has and how he's still like not really in a place to do that yet. And partially it's because one of his friends said that, who had also lost a wife, said that once you get rid of their clothes, it's when you know they're really gone. Anyway, I was in the closet the other day and I found this. I thought you might like to have it. He hands Bree a square blue velvet box, which she recognizes immediately. It's where her mom stored her golden charm bracelet. She'd only had 2 charms on it, one with Bree's name and one with her father's name. It was one of her nicer pieces, but it was the one she seemed to love the most. And even now, the smell of her and velvet is strong and alive, like she never left. It overwhelms Bree, bypassing the rational parts of her brain and zinging straight through to her memory. It pulls to a weekend of shopping with her at the mall. It unearths the sensation of her hugs. It sinks Bree down into her lap when she was little, and rushes her past every single one of her cool hands on her forehead when she was sick. Bree moves to open the box, but her dad stops her. Open it when you get back to your room. So I'm going to get back to my room. You're not going to tell me not to study too hard? You can study hard, but only that's how you want to do it. No matter what you do, you've got to live your life, kiddo. You've got to be in the world. That's what she would want you to do. He reaches across the table and take both of her hands into his. Don't make your life about the loss. Make it about the love.
Bars. That's what I call bars.
Those bars.
Daddy Matthews.
After I read that, after I read that, I spoke to Darren about like the importance of like older Black men sharing their wisdom, but also like in the right times, because I feel like there's a level of like, and this is true for a lot of people, but I feel like especially I've seen it recently talked about for like Jay-Z, and apparently people who work with him said that if you work with him, he's like easy enough to work for, but you gotta like sit there and listen to him like try to give you advice all day. And I feel like that's a thing. I feel like that's a thing about like old head Black men where they're like they didn't get enough time to share wisdom or hear wisdom when they were younger, so they feel like they just have to do it. Like it's something they have to do as an older Black man is like share stuff, and you're like, bro, like half of this stuff doesn't apply to me. Like I don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
And I like whenever you see moments of Black men, like not only like being able to pass on a thing they feel like they want to pass on, but also they do it in the way that's actually going to be like receptive and useful to people, and well received on both sides. And I enjoyed that for Bree's dad here. That yeah, I agree with the observation that that he's the only Black man we really see represented well in this story, in this book, and how that is a detriment to like representation of Black men throughout this story. But I think that giving the time or whatever conceit, and yes, it still could have been done better. I really enjoy that Bree's dad comes through the way he comes through, and that like it's really comes through and telling her like he's not going to tell her how to live her life, but he is going to give her, don't make it about the loss, make it about the love.
Give her the keys.
And And that's all she really, that's the main thing. Like, if she can just come back to that, and it's like a simple like framing for her to just be able to come back to without her like losing the juice of it. I love that for him. Like, he's able to condense that together.
Also, justice for Valak, unless he doesn't count as a black man.
No, he does, but we're just not there.
Oh,
she was
this
talking
book.
about this.
Okay,
this book. Yeah. And that's why Mr. Matthews is everybody's MVP. It looks like.
I also had a special shout out to Alice for calling Mr. Matthews in. I love when it's like basically she was like, it's time for reinforcements. Call the Avengers. Avengers assemble. So, but yeah.
She's like, I can't do this on my own. I use the power. I invoke the power of Disney specials, and she gave me nothing.
It's so above me now.
You know the higher power here.
Who is?
I think we also have a quorum for bench, which is the order. Trifecta. Unanimous voting. Yeah. I think in these 3 chapters, and the what was that 38th chapter or 40 chapter 40 is very short and just gives us angst, but there isn't a villain besides the villain, the main big bad, which is the order for me. And I think even in the choices that Bree's mom made, that stems it if you follow that line, it goes back to Jonathan Davis, the Davis ancestor, being a piece of shit and saddling them with Arthur. So I don't, it's the only choice for me in these chapters.
Yeah, agreed. It's like we see a bit more about how they operate. We see the ways that they've kind of affected all of these people, and we see the way that even though Bree is thinking that it's not that the order has nothing to do with this, like, spoilers, it really does. Yeah. So
it all stems from their choices.
I also like that. I think the lack of choice that is here because of this order, but also the how Bree is in this moment affected by the choices that she can make going forward by the order because of those things as well. It's not only does it have historical ramifications in is it show those same historical relationships rippling into today, but she also literally just can't, because the stupid Arthur and his stupid bloodline, she literally just can't go from being oh, I was on the wrong end here and I can go do something, get out of this now. But also when did her mom, her grandmothers, all the people, all the mothers before her, they never got to be part it doesn't sound like they ever were really part of a community. They were kept away from community because of the freaking order. And the order is already bad enough about other magical users, but gosh darn it. So I really just the order can stay in the garbage bin forever.
Thank you for listening, and join us next week when we discuss chapters 42 through 44. I cannot believe how close we are. Y'all are not ready. Even though it's a spoiler-heavy podcast and you think you're ready. You're not, because I'm not.
Wizard Team is part of the Black Nerds Create Collective. If you want to keep up with our content, you can check out our website at blacknerdscreate.com and follow us on Instagram and Tumblr at Wizard Team Pod and at Black Nerds Create.
Bye!